Hi, I'm Heather Hocker, President and CEO of the Lubbock Symphony Orchestra, and this is Clef Notes. I'm excited to introduce you to our musicians, guest artists, community members, and patrons who for 80 years have developed a love of music through your Lubbock Symphony here on the South Plains. On today's episode, I'm visiting with Dr. Rachel Mazzucco, the Rachel Jean Armstrong Thomas Harp Endowed Chair of the Lubbock Symphony Orchestra. It's a lot of names, and I just put two and two together that you share the same first name. That's real exciting. Dr. Mazzucco is the lecturer of harp and music theory at Texas Tech University and co-director of the Texas Tech University String Project. She is also an active performer with Ballet Lubbock and the Amarillo Symphony, where she also serves as principal harpist. Rachel holds a PhD in fine arts with a concentration in music theory and a master's in music and harp performance from Texas Tech. She received her bachelor's of music in music performance and a bachelor of science in mathematics from Texas Christian University. In addition to her work as a performer and educator, Dr. Mazzucco has presented research in local, regional, and international venues for groups such as the American Harp Society, the American String Teachers Association, and the Texas Society for Music Theory. Rachel, thank you so much for joining me on Cliff Notes today.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So let's back up a little bit. Share with our audience your background and how did you select the harp?
So there was always music in my house growing up. We sang in choirs once we started, I think, making sound. I'm the youngest of three, and my mom wanted us all to play instruments if we could find instruments that we were excited about. And since we already had some instruments in the house, I tried several before I settled on the harp. We had a poster of an orchestra, and I just thought the harp was pretty. So I was like, I want to play that one. And my mom was like, here's a piano, because we already had a piano in the house. But eventually, after I think a while of saying that I wanted to play the harp, my parents finally were like, okay, well, she's been interested in this for a while now. Let's see if we can make this happen. And which was difficult because there's not a lot of harp shops. You can't just drive down, even in a big city. I grew up in Dallas. Even in a big city like Dallas, there's not a harp shop you can just go to and try out harps at. So my parents did a lot of research and found a harp maker in Michigan. And my dad and I drove up to Michigan and picked out this harp from this guy at his house who made harps. And we drove back with the harp in the back of the car. It was a medium lever harp, so it's about 5 feet tall. And my mom would not have approved of this, but my dad let me crawl into the back. It was on an air mattress, and let me crawl into the back and like pluck the strings while we were driving. So my very first piece that I played was Ode to Joy, because it's got a lot of steps in it, so it was easy to figure out on the harp. And that was when I was 10. And from there, I just fell in love, and now I'm here.
Okay, so talk about the different sizes of harps. I think our audience might find that interesting.
Well, there are so many options now that are becoming increasingly accessible. My specialty is the orchestral instrument that you see, the big 6-foot-tall harp. Its full name is the double action pedal harp, which just means that each string has 3 different lengths that it can be. You push a pedal on the bottom of the harp, and it turns these discs that shorten the string, and you can push the pedal again and shorten the string again. So you have full length, which is flat. Then you have 1 notch shorter, which is natural, and then another notch shorter, which is sharp. So those are the 2 actions of the double action pedal harp. So that's the harp that I play the most of. But that's also expensive and requires a lot of maintenance and is heavy. It's 80 pounds and not accessible to many people.
Hard to move.
Yes. Yeah, you need a car that fits it. When I shop for cars, which I don't like doing, I have to take my harp to the dealership and put it in the car, because the exact dimensions of the backs of cars is actually surprisingly hard to pin down. So if you're just starting the harp, that's not usually a good option. So what we have that is becoming increasingly available are medium lever harps and small lever harps, and even harps that don't have any levers, that are just diatonic. They just play whatever scale you tune the harp to. And these can be quite small. So the smallest harps that I've found to be very useful instruments are made by this company called Harpsicle Harps. And they're called a harpsicle because they're this little bitty harp. It's like 3 or 4 pounds. It can sit sit in your lap or can sit on a stand. So it's like a popsicle on a stand, harpsicle. It has 26 strings, which is a lot of strings to cram into such a small amount of space. But these harps have really, I think, increased the accessibility of harp to people who want to try it, but maybe don't want to invest tens of thousands of dollars on it until they know if they like it or not. So those harps I've really enjoyed learning about and getting to use through String Project, actually, as well as in the medium lever harps, like the one that I started on. Those range in size 4 to 5 feet tall. They might have 30 to 40 strings on them. And for a lever harp, you have an individual lever on each string that you have to stop playing with one hand and move to change from natural to sharp or to change from flat to natural. So those are kind of the different families of harp. It's a lot more accessible to a lot more people now than it used to be.
Okay, so let's back up. You were 10 years old. Your dad drives you to Michigan. You pick up this harp. You come back to Dallas. Talk about the next 8 years before you head off to TCU. And what was your harp education like in Dallas?
So my parents had, obviously, before I actually started playing, done a lot of research and already found several teachers in the area. Dallas is a big city, and so we had access in a way that smaller cities do not always have access to harp teachers. And my first teacher was Susan Pejovich, who at the time played with the Dallas Symphony, and she was amazing. At the time, she did not normally accept beginners, but her daughter was going to learn to play the harp at the same time, so we were going to join together. But by the time we had our first lesson, her daughter had already gone, no, I'm not playing the same instrument as my mother. I'm going to play the violin or something like that. But she'd already agreed to teach. And I think she kind of wanted to branch out more into beginner students at that point. And I already read music because I'd already been singing and I'd played piano for 6 months. And so I think that was also helpful for her because she didn't need to spend time on that step during lessons. We could just be learning the harp part of it. So Susan Pejovich was just an amazing teacher that she had taught wonderful, solid technique to give me a really healthy technique that I can use for a lifetime. And I took from her for several years. I also played harp with my middle school orchestra. Once I started in 5th grade, and then in 6th grade, I went into middle school and played harp in orchestra. But I actually...
And they had a harp for you to...
Not at first.
Not at first.
Yeah,
okay.
So my
so
first year, my mom and I moved the harp a lot. But in I guess it was in 7th grade, the district invested in a harp I think they had some harps in the high schools, but not in the middle schools. Mm. And they actually bought a pedal harp because I was there. And there was, I think another student started when I was finishing middle school and hopefully then enjoyed that harp as well. And I actually ended up homeschooling for a couple of years. And so although my siblings were in the high school, and so I played occasionally with the high school orchestra at that time, I also got to take advantage of some of the youth orchestras in Dallas. So I played with youth orchestras. We actually did a trip to China when I was young, which was a wonderful trip. And then in high school, I spent my last 2 years actually at UNT in this program called TAMS. So I did my last 2 years of high school taking from teachers
Tell
at
everyone
UNT.
what TAMS stands for.
So TAMS is the Texas Academy of Mathematics and Science. And you live on campus just like a college student. You take classes with other college students as well as other students at
High
TAMS.
school students.
Yes. And but most of those classes are core classes and math and science classes. So to take music classes, I talked with the harp teacher there, and she was very generous to offer to also teach me lessons as well. So
much to break down. Okay, then fast forward, you finish at UNT, and then you head on to TCU.
Yes. So at that point, I didn't know if I was going to do science or math or music. I was interested in all of them, and I think excelled at all of them. But I did audition for schools to get harp scholarships in order to help pay for college. No matter what I was in, I could use some help paying for college.
Right.
And several schools offered me scholarships. And I was not initially planning on TCU. It was the school my mother went to, and I didn't want to go to the same school as my mom. But they offered me a full scholarship. scholarship. And when I went there, they were so gracious. And I really got to know the teacher there, Laura Brandenburg, at the time. And I'd done one camp at TCU over a summer. So they at that camp, it was a choir camp, but they had a talent show thing. And I wanted to play a harp piece at it. But I didn't have my harp there. And the teacher went out of her way, Laura went out of her way to help me do that. So I had some good associations from that. And I had a really good time when I auditioned and visited the school. So I went to TCU and I'm very happy that I did. And at that time, I still wasn't really planning on doing music as my main career. It was kind of the way that I would pay for college. And pharmacy was something I was interested in. So I spent some time working towards pharmacy. But somewhere along the way, towards the end of my degree, there wasn't any like one thing that pushed me over the edge one way or another. But I had this really wonderful performance. I had done a junior recital, and I think it was maybe the summer after that, I played one of the pieces from my junior recital at my church. And I had that feeling that you sometimes get when you're playing, like you might call it a flow state or something. And we don't always get into that, but it was a really special performance. And it wasn't perfect. It wasn't that it was a perfect performance or anything, but it was just a little bit more transcendent than other performances and kind of pushed me over the edge of looking into grad school at that point then. And my teacher recommended Tech. Laura was a student of Gail Barber, who was the teacher at Tech at the time. And Gail was getting on the older side. And if I wanted to study with her, then now would be the time. There wasn't going to be another opportunity.
No procrastinating there.
Yes. So I came to Tech. So Gail was an amazing teacher and internationally famous and won competitions and everything in her youth. But I also was very impressed with the theory department here. And the collaboration between different areas of the school, you could be interested in many things and involved with many things. You didn't get stuck on one path. You weren't only an ed student or only a performance student or only a theory student. You could do parts of all of these things, and that seemed to match with what I was interested in and good at. So I was very impressed with not only the harp teacher, but many musicians choose their school based on their primary instrument, and that certainly was a big factor. But I was impressed with many other parts of the school and just found the academic faculty were really amazing. So
at this time, we're going to go ahead and sign off for this week's Clef Notes. And next week, we'll return with the second half of the conversation with Dr. Rachel Mazzucco. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and interest in the harp with our community and educating our listeners more so on the harp and the history. It's exciting, and look forward to hearing you in concert at the Lubbock Symphony Chamber Orchestra on Saturday, September 19th. For season tickets, please call the Lubbock Symphony Orchestra box office at 806-762-1688. You can find the Lubbock Symphony Orchestra on social media. And to purchase tickets, visit our website at lubbocksymphony.org and be sure to download the Classical 105.7 app so you never miss an episode of Clef Notes. A special thanks to Rachel Boyd, our producer, and make it a great day. We'll see you